The morning of Kyle's graduation, Vera Sutcliffe ironed his convocation gown herself. She didn't have to. Kyle was 22 years old, perfectly capable of running a steam iron over polyester. But she'd driven 4 hours from Ottawa the night before, checked into a motel on the edge of campus, because Kyle's apartment didn't have a spare bedroom, and woken up at 6 in the morning with that particular kind of restlessness that only comes when you love someone so much, you don't know what to do with your hands. So she ironed the gown. She hung it carefully on the back of the motel bathroom door and stood there for a moment, looking at it. 4 years, $43,000, when you counted everything. Tuition, books, the laptop she'd replaced when his old one died in second year, the groceries she'd sent money for every month because she knew he was too proud to ask. She'd never added it up, not really. That wasn't the point. Kyle was her sister Joanna's son, and Joanna had died of ovarian cancer when Kyle was 7 years old, standing in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and grief. That she would take care of him. She had for 15 years. She texted him at 7:30, "I picked up your gown. Want to meet for breakfast before the ceremony?" He replied an hour later, "We're having breakfast with Miranda's family. See you there." Vera read the message twice. Then she put her phone face down on the nightstand and went to have breakfast alone at a diner down the street, where she ordered eggs she didn't finish and drank 3 cups of coffee that didn't help. She told herself it was fine. Kyle had a girlfriend now. Miranda Eckhart, whom Vera had met exactly once briefly at Christmas, was perfectly pleasant. Her family had driven up from Hamilton. Of course they wanted to have breakfast together. It was a big day for everyone. Vera told herself all of that in the diner, and she almost believed it. The convocation ceremony was held in the university's main athletic complex, which had been transformed for the day with rows of folding chairs and a low stage at the far end. Vera found a seat near the middle of the 3rd row, close enough to see, far enough not to feel like she was hovering, and watched the hall fill up around her. She spotted Kyle's dark hair across the room. He was standing with a group of people she didn't recognize, laughing at something. Miranda was beside him, her hand tucked into the crook of his elbow. Beside Miranda stood a tall couple who had to be her parents, and a younger woman who was probably her sister, and an older man with white hair who might have been a grandfather. They were arranged in a loose, happy cluster, taking photos on 3 different phones at once. Vera watched from her seat. She didn't go over. She didn't want to interrupt. She waited until Kyle glanced in her direction, and she raised her hand in a small wave. He saw her. She was certain he saw her. He smiled, a quick, reflexive smile, and then he turned back to Miranda's family. Vera put her hand down. The ceremony began. They called the graduates up one, by faculty, by program. When the announcer called Kyle Thomas Sutcliffe Ward, he'd hyphenated his name and university, adding his father's surname to his mother's, which Vera had always respected even if it made her feel, sometimes, like she was holding half of him. The room applauded. Vera applauded too. She stood up, actually without thinking about it, because she'd watched this kid do his homework at her kitchen table for 8 years and she needed him to know she was there. Kyle crossed the stage. He shook the dean's hand. He accepted his diploma. He turned to the audience and grinned. That big crooked grin that was exactly like Joanna's, and Vera felt her chest crack open with something that was almost entirely joy. He looked out at the crowd. He found Miranda's family immediately. They were waving a handmade sign, white Bristol board with his name in blue marker, and he pointed at them and laughed. Then the moment passed and he was walking off the stage, and Vera sat back down. The reception afterward was held in the atrium outside the ceremony hall. There were tables with white tablecloths, a bar, little plates of sandwiches and fruit. Vera got herself a glass of sparkling water and stood near the far edge of the room, watching the crowd shift and settle. She found Kyle again. He was surrounded. Miranda's parents, Miranda's sister, the grandfather. Someone was refilling everyone's glasses. Someone else was laughing loudly at something Kyle had said. His diploma was being passed around for people to look at, handle, admire. Vera waited. She was good at waiting. She'd waited through Kyle's difficult teenage years, through the phase where he barely spoke to her, through the period in his first year of university, when he'd called her crying at midnight twice a week, and then as the year improved, less and less until he'd found his footing and his friends and didn't need to call at all anymore. She'd waited through all of it. Waiting was not the hard part. But then Miranda's mother, a put-together woman in a coral blazer, with the smooth manner of someone who had never once in her life been uncomfortable at a party, looked across the cluster of people and caught Vera's eye. Not warmly, not with recognition, with the particular blankness of someone who sees a stranger and quietly files her away as unimportant. Vera looked away first. She was finishing her water, thinking she might slip out, when Kyle finally broke away from the group and came toward her. He was still holding his diploma. He looked happy. He looked like a man who had everything he needed. "Hey," he said. Hey, Vera smiled. Congratulations, sweetheart, I'm so proud of you. Thanks. He glanced back over his shoulder at the group. Sorry we couldn't do breakfast. Miranda's parents drove a long way, I know. It's fine. She nodded at the diploma. Can I see that? He handed it over. She held it carefully, the weight of it, the formal script of his name. Bachelor of Engineering with honors. Joanna would have cried. Vera was not going to cry, not here, not now, but she was thinking about it. I want to take a photo with you, she said. Yeah, of course. Let me just. He turned. Miranda, come take a photo with us. This is my Aunt Vera. Miranda came over, pleasant and a little distant, and took the phone. She snapped a few photos quickly, with the efficiency of someone completing a task, and then handed the phone back to Kyle. Her family wants to do a big group shot, Kyle said, pocketing the phone. We're going out to dinner tonight? Miranda made a reservation at that Italian place downtown. I meant to tell you it's kind of a family thing. Vera looked at him. Family, she said, not a question. Kyle's jaw shifted. Her parents, you know? Her whole family's here. It's fine, Vera said. She heard herself say it. She sounded completely normal. Go, you're sure? I'm sure. Go, Kyle. Congratulations. She watched him go back to the group. She watched Miranda's father clap him on the shoulder. The easy authority of it, the welcome. She watched Kyle lean in and laugh at something. Already reabsorbed, already fully there. Vera set her empty glass down on a passing tray and walked to the exit. She drove back to the motel. She sat on the edge of the bed in her coat. Outside, the May afternoon was gray and mild. The kind of weather that doesn't commit to anything. She sat there for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and opened her banking app. The automatic tuition payment for Kyle's fall semester. He was doing a graduate certificate program starting in September, and she'd agreed, months ago, to cover it. Was scheduled for July 15th, $14,000. She looked at it for a moment, then she canceled it. She wasn't angry. That was the thing she would try to explain later and never quite managed to say right. She wasn't angry in the way people expect. Not hot and sharp and righteous. She was just done. The way you're done with something when you finally stop pretending it's other than what it is. She opened her contacts and found Kyle's name. She didn't call, she typed a message instead. I love you and I'm proud of you. But I've canceled the fall payment. I think it's time you figured this part out on your own. Take good care of yourself. She sent it. Then she put her phone back in her bag and drove home to Ottawa. The first one she let go to voicemail. Kyle's voice tight and confused. Vera, what's going on? Can you call me back? The second one she answered. I got your text, Kyle said. I don't understand. Is this about the dinner? This isn't about the dinner, because if it is, Miranda's family they're a lot. It was a whole thing, Kyle. She kept her voice level. I've been paying for your education for 4 years. I've been sending you money every month for 4 years. I've done that because I love you and I wanted to. But I think it's time for that to change. You're cutting me off because I didn't invite you to dinner. I'm not cutting you off. I'm stopping a financial arrangement that I've been carrying alone for a very long time. Those are different things. There was a long pause. I need that money for September, he said. I know. You have time to apply for a student loan. Your credit is good. There are options, a student loan. His voice had shifted into something she didn't recognize. Harder, more entitled. After everything you said about wanting to support my education, I did support your education for 4 years and $43,000. I supported your education. She stopped, took a breath. I don't regret any of it, but I'm not going to keep funding your future while you build a life that I'm not a part of. That's not fair. Maybe not, Vera said. Take care of yourself, Kyle. She hung up. She went back to her regular life, which was, in its way, a good life. She worked in project management for a mid-sized consulting firm downtown. She had a condo in Centertown with good light and a balcony where she grew tomatoes every summer. She had friends, real ones, the kind who had been around long enough to know when to talk and when to just show up with wine. Her best friend since university, a dry, sharp-humored woman named Bet Kowalski, came over 2 days after the graduation and sat on Vera's couch and said, "Tell me everything," and Vera did, and Bet listened without interrupting, which was its own kind of relief. You did the right thing, Bet said when Vera was finished. I know, but it still feels terrible. Yes, that's because you loved him, not because you were wrong. Bet refilled both their glasses. The two things can both be true at the same time. Vera had known that in theory, but it helped to hear someone else say it. She thought about Kyle every day, in the way you think about someone you've raised, not with urgency, just with the low, persistent ache of presence. She wondered if he was eating well. She wondered if he'd applied for the loan. She caught herself twice opening his contact on her phone, and both times she put it away without calling. She didn't hear from him for 6 weeks. Then in late June a letter arrived. She almost never got real mail, so the envelope sat on her kitchen counter for half a day before she opened it. Her name in Kyle's handwriting, she recognized it immediately. The same careful printing he'd used on every birthday card for 15 years. Inside was 2 pages, handwritten, the kind of writing that has been started and abandoned and started again. He wrote about the morning after he'd received her text. He wrote about calling Miranda and her saying, "Well, what did you expect?" in a tone that made him realize for the first time that she had known exactly what she was expecting. He wrote about going back to his apartment and sitting with the silence and starting for the first time to actually think about the last 4 years, not what he'd received, but what he'd done with it. He wrote, "I've been so focused on building something with Miranda's family that I forgot to protect what I already had. I think I was trying so hard to belong somewhere that I treated you like you were already permanent, like I didn't have to work for you the way I was working for them. That was wrong. I know it was wrong." He wrote, "I don't expect you to fix this for me. I applied for the loan, I got it, I'm okay, but I wanted you to know that I know, and I'm sorry." Vera read the letter twice, standing at her kitchen counter. Then she folded it back along its original creases and put it in the drawer where she kept important things. Her passport, her mother's watch, a photo of Joanna taken the summer before she got sick. She sat down at the table. Outside the window the city moved through its ordinary Tuesday afternoon, a bus, a cyclist, 2 people walking a dog. She thought about Joanna, the way she always did when something happened that felt too large for just herself. She thought about the promise she'd made in that hospital room, "I'll take care of him," and whether she'd been keeping it all these years or whether this, finally, was what keeping it actually looked like. Not money, not rescue, just telling the truth about what she needed and leaving the rest to him. She thought it was possible it was both, that the 15 years of showing up and the one afternoon of walking away were the same act, done in different seasons. She called Kyle that evening. He answered on the second ring like he'd been waiting. "I got your letter," she said. "Okay." His voice was careful, guarded in the way it gets when someone isn't sure what's coming. "I want you to know that I hear you," she said, "and I accept your apology." She paused. "But things are going to be different, Kyle. I'm not your safety net. I can't be the person you call when something goes wrong if I'm not the person you call when something goes right. Do you understand what I'm saying?" "Yes," he said, quietly, but like he meant it. "Good," she exhaled. "How's the program looking for September?" "Good, actually. I got a small bursary on top of the loan. I'll be okay, I know you will." There was a pause, the comfortable kind, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. "Vera," Kyle said. "Yeah, I found a photo the other day, from my high school graduation. You're in it. You're making that face you make when you're trying not to cry." She laughed, unexpected and real. "I hate that face, I love that face," he said. I forgot, for a while. I forgot what it meant that you were always there." She didn't say anything for a moment. She looked out at the balcony where her tomato plants were coming in slow and green against the June light. "You remember now," she said finally. "That's enough." They talked for another hour, about the program, about his apartment, about a trip he was thinking of taking to the East Coast in August. He didn't mention Miranda, and Vera didn't ask. Some things would take longer. Some things were his to sort out alone, that was all right. She'd learned, over 15 years, that loving someone and fixing things for them were not the same work, and only one of them lasted. When they hung up she sat in her quiet condo for a while, not thinking about anything in particular. Just listening to the city, just breathing. She'd kept the promise. Maybe not the way she'd imagined standing in that hospital room, 22 years old and frightened and certain that love was a matter of being there for every single thing, but she'd kept it in the way that turned out to matter. She'd shown Kyle what it looked like to know your own worth, to love someone without disappearing into them, to walk away not out of anger but out of honesty. He would have to build the rest himself. She was at last okay with that.